So welcome everyone to the Shouting at Screens video game review podcast. Today we're reviewing Grand Theft Auto Free City, the latest edition of the Grand Theft Auto franchise. Very interesting choice to have you go to a movie theater to play it, but maybe it's like sort of a new marketing scam or something.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I don't think I actually ever pressed any buttons ever or actually participated in the game. Yeah. I was just watching the whole time.
Yeah, you're there to watch the game, not interact with it. But
it was probably the longest intro video I've ever seen to a video game.
It's a cutscene. It's the cutscene when you first load up. It's just 2 hours. You have to sit there, unskippable.
The video game is actually the Paradise World, not the Free City.
Yes.
You don't walk around and you don't kill people.
The boring Paradise World that, like, what's the point of their game? Like, it doesn't actually do anything. You're just there to walk around, I guess. I don't know. Like, that they never actually explain. They're like, oh, you just watch life evolve. And it's like, okay, so it's not a game then. It's just like a VR movie that I get to interact with a little bit or something.
It's like SimCity and Minecraft, and then add some steroids.
But you don't control it though. You don't get to build.
As far as we can tell.
Yeah, they never explain it. That's okay.
Well, we'll get there eventually in the podcast.
Yeah, we're skipping ahead a little, I guess. But like, yeah. So Free Guy is it's
not a video game.
Not a video game. It's a movie. It's a video game and a movie. It asks that question of, can we finally make a video game movie that is also a good movie? Because to my knowledge, that still hasn't been done.
Yes.
And it still hasn't really been done. Like, I mean, I guess it's okay.
Ready Player One tried.
Yeah, I guess so.
It wasn't bad. I remember, but this movie was definitely, I feel like, did a much better job. Of course, Ready Player One is based on a book. Whilst this movie seems to be based on video games.
This one very much feels like the video game that is the world in this movie that Ryan Reynolds' character lives in. It's very much Grand Theft Auto. That's the most direct, I guess. One that it could be would be like basically GTA. I guess like you could make comparisons to a lot of different like open world type games, or just a lot of different video games are referenced in general. I mean, there's certainly components of the world that are not directly based on like Grand Theft Auto, but like it's very much, it's a big city. There's a little bit of surrounding area, and people are just going around robbing things and stealing cars. The opening sequence actually feels a little Just Cause, because the guy comes in and wingsuits, and then he opens his parachute and then drops into a car and like drives off with it. And that felt a little Just Cause to me, because obviously Just Cause, wingsuit, parachute, all that.
That was
stuff.
my first thought. Like Just Cause, like the opening scene, this guy like flying in with a wingsuit, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
I've played this one.
I really hope they make a Free Guy video game.
That would be funny, actually. Do you remember, like, back in the day, like, I feel like they don't, maybe they still do, but they just aren't very popular. I don't know. But I feel like back in the day, like in the PlayStation 2 days or so, like, every kids movie, or, like, movie that could conceivably be kiddish, had, like, a crappy tie-in video game.
Yes.
Like,
all the time, even like the Disney princess movies, I think.
Yeah, like every movie had to have some stupid game that was, half baked and just kind of went along with it. It was just another piece of merchandise. It was like you can buy your Cars shirt and your Cars, toy cars, and then you buy your Cars video game. Like it's just was all part of the experience. I think actually the Cars video game was sort of considered one of the better movie-based like video games. I remember playing like some of the Incredibles video game, and it was just awful.
Really?
But I was also a kid, so that being said, the fact that I thought it was bad and I was a kid playing it probably means it was bad, I would assume. Because when I was like a little kid, I was just happy to be playing a video game most of the time. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. My mom doesn't let me do this very much because she wants me to like go outside. So
I remember playing the Cars Game Boy game and actually having that be really fun. Or maybe it was DS. I don't remember. Back in the good old days. But anyways, so you just saw this movie today, right?
Yeah, I just saw it a few hours ago. So, and you saw it last night. I also saw a movie last night. I saw Suicide Squad. So I've been consuming.
You saw 2 movies last night.
I've been consuming a lot of movies lately, because what's funny is I have not been to a movie theater in like over a year and a half because of the current thing that's been going on forever.
Mm-hmm. The current thing.
Yes, and then literally now I've been to 2 in movie theaters within the past 36 hours of us recording this. So not even 24 hours, less than 24 hours. So yeah.
I felt good to be back in the theaters. I hope those things don't die out.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I got my like big cherry slushy when I saw Suicide Squad. That's like the one reliable source of like a giant icy drink is a movie theater. It's like for some reason they don't have those at most fast food places, so it's like, if I need a giant slushy, I need to go to see a movie, which for me that's my go-to because like popcorn.
Really? You got to get the movie theater popcorn. It's a classic.
But it makes you... I don't know. Well, I guess my main problem is if they served it in like amounts that were healthy, it would probably be fine. But of course, you go to the movie theater and it's like, oh, here's your 5-gallon bucket of popcorn, you giant fatso, and then they like smear butter over the top, and then you feel sick when you leave the theater. So that's why I get the slushy, because that doesn't seem to have that effect on me as much.
Wow, I would feel like the slushy would have that effect on me, whilst the popcorn wouldn't. But
no, the danger of the slushy is you have to pee, like, and you paid for the movie. Like most movies, watching at home is like, okay, well, I'm just gonna pause this, and I'll be back in a couple minutes. But like, I don't want to miss out on the movie that I paid good money for. So you just gotta like tough it out, and then you like run to the bathroom once the movie's over. You're like, that was good. Yeah. Is there an after credit scene? I don't care. I'll watch.
You probably could have.
I'll watch the after credit scene on YouTube later because I'm sure it's up there if one exists.
Yeah, right. You probably could have done that with this movie, Free Guy. Just not missed much.
Yeah, just gone to the bathroom and like, what did I do? I don't know, man. Like, did it matter?
I feel like I don't have a ton to say about this movie. It was good.
Ish. Yeah.
One of the interesting thoughts I had at the beginning was, I feel like they're going for like a Will Ferrell kind of like. I feel like he could have played Guy in the movie in the opening parts, just because he was like he's supposed to be this completely innocent white Caucasian like virgin dude. And I kept thinking like, this is exactly something Buddy the Elf would say.
Oh, you're right. That is kind of true.
But he also Ryan Reynolds is just, he's an interesting character because he can play that kind of innocent role, but ever since Deadpool, it's just like, I don't know, he's got to be in something a bit, I can only see him in something a bit like dirtier than complete innocence.
There's a Deadpool reference in this movie, of course, because the one super nerd dude who's like I think he's a streamer, but I don't think he's a real streamer. I think he's an actor who's just playing a streamer in this particular movie, as opposed to some of the other streamers that cameo in the movie who are real streamers. He like has like a bunch of posters on his wall that are a lot of different nerdy references, including a Deadpool poster. So
was it okay?
Mm-hmm. But maybe you could argue maybe the since Ryan Reynolds is just a video game character in this movie, maybe the Guy character is just modeled off of Ryan Reynolds, perhaps.
Maybe. Oh, there you go. I feel like this movie, like, it was, I didn't have a lot of genuine like laughing moments, which just made me laugh. There were a few. It felt like a pretty safe movie. It felt pretty PG. I don't think there was any there are any F-bombs in there.
Ryan Reynolds drops an F-bomb at one point.
Does he?
Yes.
there's a kid that
he tells
almost says it.
What they use it as. I think it's really funny whenever movies slip in there at one F-bomb if it's not an R-rated movie. Like, like it's funny that so many of them bother to use it. It's almost like they feel obligated to use it, I guess.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like a joke. Like, where are you going to put the one F-bomb?
Yeah, and so Ryan Reynolds tells his goldfish, good effing morning.
Oh, you're right.
And it's like, well, okay, I guess. Like, I guess that was supposed to be funny. Like, but it's just like, oh, Ryan Reynolds said the F word. I guess I'll just go watch Deadpool if I really want to see that. I mean...
Yeah, it kind of felt a little out. Now that I remember, it felt a little out of place because the whole movie felt pretty innocent, and then there was that one moment, and then he has that one moment at like the coffee shop where I don't know, it was some expression about his drinking his coffee
mouth
was like
he loses his mouth virginity.
Yeah, which felt like a little.
There's
much
a few little sex jokes. There's he found the button joke that the one girl.
That was good. That was good. That was a good moment. It was pretty PG.
Yeah, the kids don't get that one. You have to become a little more adult before you're aware that that's actually an innuendo. You're like, oh yeah.
Yep. But then he had a few comments in the early movie that just felt totally out of place. Like maybe for a different style or genre, like losing. I mean, it's not a terrible thing. Like losing. This tastes so good. It felt like my mouth lost its virginity. Like. Ha ha ha
ha ha ha ha.
But I feel like the movie did a really good job, better than Ready Player One, for example. I can't remember if you have seen that movie or not.
No, but I've seen so much about it that I feel like I might I know the whole plot of Ready Player One and a lot of the things that happen in it. So,
I feel like they do a pretty good job. One of the most interesting parts of the movie for me was. Oh shoot! What's the actor's name who's in Stranger Things? See if I can look him up.
Yeah, I'm not good with actors' names. Said the man running a movie review show.
Free guy. Joe Keery. He plays Keys in the movie.
Yeah, the programmer. Okay.
The programmer. It's funny how he seems to be not really pigeonholed, but he seems to be like continually playing this role in movies or TV shows where like he just can't get a date.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same thing in Stranger Things. Like this kind of genuinely pretty good guy, not like amazing, but he's always like single.
He's not a great guy, but he is a good guy.
Yeah. And I think the most interesting part of this movie was the relationship between he and his other game developing friend, who by the end of the movie becomes his romantic partner.
At the very end, yes.
At the very, very end. It was kind of cool seeing that dynamic because I didn't know they were going to... I thought the whole movie, or the majority of the movie, was going to be like Ryan Reynolds in the video game. But right from the get-go of the movie, there's a pretty significant... like it throws you into the real world. I felt like pretty quickly. I was like, "Oh, okay, we're going to the real world already."
Yeah, it was an interesting choice with that. That's actually one of my critiques of the movie. Is that so? The premise of the movie, we have Ryan Reynolds' character, and Ryan Reynolds is an NPC. His name is Guy, as we've mentioned, and Ryan Reynolds does not know that he is in a video game. He is just a character. He's just a man. He lives his life. It's very routine, as you might expect an NPC to do. But, like, to him, that is just his world. Like, he's never known anything different. Just one day, just, like, existed, I guess. And then that's it. Like, he just goes about his life. And there's no reason for him to know that there is, like, an outside world, obviously. Because he's just, like, this automaton, I guess. Like, he's an NPC in a video game. What would you expect? And then one day he starts like basically waking up and he starts changing and doing things, and he still doesn't know that it's a video game that he's living in, but he obviously has been aware of like, yeah man, like this city's pretty crazy. People just like run around with guns and like blow up cars and steal things, and it's like Chicago or something. And they sorry, might be a bad joke in poor taste there, but anyway, so he's like city's not good, and I kind of want to like fix it. So he starts, fighting these sunglasses people, as he calls them, because all of the player characters have sunglasses that apparently function as their HUD for whatever reason in the game. And he's just trying to make the world a better place. And then also, you have the other story, which is what's her name even? I literally saw the movie a couple hours ago, but I don't remember the girl's name. She's
he is
a game developer, and then we also have her like former professional partner, Keys, who is also a game developer. Keys works for like the big company that runs the game that Guy's on, and then she's just like an independent person, but she's currently she has a lawsuit against them because basically Tsunami, the big game publisher, a few years ago bought their indie game, bought the rights to it, and they were going to publish it, but they ended up canning it, and instead they used the code apparently as the basis for Free City. And she's basically suing because she said okay, you bought the game, but you didn't give us royalties. So we'd like to point out that it's kind of funny because by the end of the movie, her character is this is about saving these people and I just want what's mine. But it's at the beginning, it kind of just seems like you're just in this for the money too, because you're we're owed royalties for this, that they're using our code without paying us. And I don't even know how that really would work in this situation though, because he bought the game from them. He bought the rights to publish the game, and then he didn't actually publish the game. He's just ripped some of the code and then is using it in his other game.
Code. So,
But I don't know how the royalties would work out there, because it's not really the full
Is that
game.
I don't even know do you get royalties from people using your game code?
Well, especially if they bought it. That's the other thing. They bought it. They own it. They're the publisher, and now they own it. And
the purpose of the game is that they bought something from these two developers.
They bought the game they wanted to release this game.
But for whatever reason, he didn't buy the code that they were going to use for their game. And their code was this revolutionary technology that gives the AI.
But also, why did they really need that code for Free City? That's another thing, where it's because it just kind of seems like the whole game, we kind of find out, the whole game has kind of been secretly in Free City this whole time, I guess.
Yeah,
but it's hidden.
Yeah, I took that as just a creative way for the movie to show you how the code was hidden in the game. I was okay with how they presented that. How the original game was in the original game that he apparently didn't have the rights for, which was based off of this revolutionary AI code that would create these super cool AI worlds, real artificial intelligence in a video game. That the world that was created based off of that code was hidden in Free City, which wasn't using that code. So that was a little weird, but I was okay with it. So
yeah,
to me,
it's
I don't know.
It's fine, but it is also one of those things where it's it's just kind of funny. It's okay, sure, we don't have to. I guess I don't need the movie to be a complicated coding lesson where it's we use their engine to power the NPCs or whatever. It's okay, fine, sure. They bought the code, and apparently that's what is allowing the NPCs to be so lifelike, but that wasn't actually their intent, because it's only now, after this game's been out for 4 years, that they're actually discovering that the NPCs are actually much more complex than we imagined.
Yeah, and then it's revealed that he did use the super complex AI code that he apparently didn't have the rights to, and that's what they're trying to get him, the real life bad guy, villain, owner of the company. That's what they're trying to get him on. Yeah, which is interesting that Taika Waititi is the villain
Yes.
I don't know. It was just kind of fun.
Yeah, Taika Waititi is always fun. Like, he's playing a role that feels very one-dimensional and, like, stupid, but yes, I mean, Taika is always sort of amusing. Taika Waititi's character would fit better in the Free Guy video game than the real world. But
was he wearing an Assassin's Creed coat?
Yeah, he's wearing like an Assassin's Creed coat that's like stitched out of like blue jeans and a naval uniform from the appearance of it. For some reason.
Just this weird character.
Yeah.
It fits his character well in the movie. I felt like, of course, so this guy is literally Guy. He's living in this video game, and I was like, I was just kind of curious about how they're gonna incorporate that, how they're gonna portray this. Like obviously there's no direct realistic correlation to how an NPC would feel inside a video game, and so the fact that like when you put the sunglasses on, like all the players, it's like Tron, all the human players, their characters in the game, they look all very customized and they have all very weaponized and everything. They're the only ones with sunglasses, and so Guy eventually, Ryan Reynolds, gets sunglasses from one of the players and puts it on, and all of a sudden he sees all like the health boosts laying around, all the levels, all the players are identified, and all the typical things you'd see in a video game suddenly pop up in front of him. He's like, whoa, what's happening? I thought that I was like, okay, well, it's a little weird, but I mean, how else are you gonna portray this in a video game? So I was like, okay, whatever, not a big deal. I kind of let that slide. I felt this movie did a pretty good job at creative ways at portraying, how you might live inside a video game. One of the I think it was supposed to be funny. I think it kind of was. To me, it's something like a little much. How like a lot of players, it's more of like a Fortnite thing, I guess. But like players will have like absolutely ridiculous skins and the dancing. Yeah. And so like one of the players. It was interesting because you would see the video game animation style of Ryan Reynolds, and then it would like jump into the game, and then all of a sudden everything would be realistic.
Yes,
I thought that was pretty cool. But like when everything is realistic in the video game, one of the guys appeared in like a bright pink like bunny suit, which you would see in a video game because that's just like, so I don't know, people do that. I thought that was like a little much. It was kind of weird to see because it was literally just a guy in like a pink bunny costume that like you might see on like a parade somewhere. I don't know. It was kind of weird for me, but it was kind of funny, so whatever. The movie definitely got better, I think, as it progressed.
I kind of feel the opposite. I almost liked it more at the beginning, and then the longer it went on, I was like, yeah, okay, this is getting...
Really?
Yeah.
It felt forced in the beginning a lot, which is typical for movies. And then by the end of the movie, things were kind of a lot more well developed and more interesting and smoother. I felt.
It was just
interesting.
It was one of those things where, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that felt forced at the beginning, but I liked sort of exploring the idea of, we had the introduction of ideas where we see the female character. Again, I can't even remember her name. Was it Millie? Is it Millie or something?
Yeah, Millie. Yes, Millie's her name. See, online, it's just her name is Molotov.
Yeah. So she's going around and she's like, you can tell she's played the game a lot, I guess, because she's looking for evidence that her code is in it, which I feel like if you actually wanted to do that in real life, you wouldn't play the game. You would actually just like, rip the files apart on your computer and like
hacking it normally.
Yeah.
It was definitely like the code she was looking for was like in a level on the game that some player had
accidentally,
and that was a little
accessed.
Because he accidentally like saw himself. He accidentally saw the world that was hidden that they didn't that Taika Waititi, his character, didn't have the rights to for forming the game, and so he had it on file or something, some random player. And so the way they represented that in the movie is like, well, legally she had to show that file to, I don't know, someone, the world, some judge, to show proof that, hey, this is our game and not Taika Waititi's game. So he like used it illegally. of course, so in the way they portrayed that is this like, what does a file look like, if you're in a video game? Well, they had to, like, it was in someone's like arsenal, they had to go steal it. It was very video game-esque. That was interesting, but again, I kind of let it slide because I was like, well, it's a movie, and how else are you going to portray that? Mm-hmm. But realistically, you probably would just hack that. Not have to play a level to get it.
Yeah, you have to, like, you would just, like, scroll through the giant, like, pages and pages of code until you found, like, hey, code is literally just directly ripped from my code. And that's probably yes. how you would prove that. But instead, so that way the movie can happen, she has to go play the game and look for it in there. And so that's fine. And anyway, she, like, comes across Ryan Reynolds' character, and this causes him to basically start acting differently because she's like.
I thought this was cool.
This is something that was funny. I caught it. I realized what was happening as soon as there's a scene, like, about halfway through the movie, it felt like, where Ryan Reynolds takes her to go get ice cream, and they get bubblegum ice cream, and she doesn't know at this point that he's an NPC. She thinks he's another player because everyone just assumes, like, oh, like, obviously an NPC wouldn't be doing this, but they go to get ice cream, and she just thinks that he's being, like, fun, like, hey, let's go get ice cream together in a video game. Like, obviously, like, you can't really enjoy the ice cream, but it's just sort of a fun thing to do in the game, I guess. So they go get ice cream, but he's, like, going on about how he loves the taste, it's his favorite flavor, and she doesn't quite realize that I think she just thinks he's, like, kind of messing around, but he says, like, oh, it's my favorite flavor, it's, like, bubblegum ice cream.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh,
no one else likes bubblegum.
Yeah, no one else likes it, but it's my favorite. And pretty much as soon as that happened, I caught, like, oh, he was probably, his code or something is made specifically for her or from her or something. I bet, like,
there you go.
That was, like, an immediate connection. Like, what are the like, as soon as that happened, it was like, oh, I bet this is what's really happening in this movie. Because
that's pretty smart of you. I didn't realize that then, but. So if the game is, like, basically, if there's a super intelligent AI in this game, or this code that's able to create very intelligent artificial intelligence, very smart, like, AI that can develop on their own, like, well, if it's being hidden, what's going to trigger it, is just appear. And I thought it was pretty clever how it took Guy. His AI, his little NPC AI, was designed to, like, he was supposed to be this guy who was always single, who could never find, true love in the video game. Just like, I guess NPCs have backstories now. That was kind of weird, but that was, like, his, like, role. And of course, he is made after after Keys, the guy who helped program this game originally, and he programmed the NPC. Modeled him after the girl that he liked, which is his partner who's developing the game, the Molotov girl. What was it? Millie. And so, of course, what triggers his AI, like what makes him not just be a shallow NPC, is that all of a sudden he sees the girl that he's, like, made for, and that gets him, like, thinking about things for the first time, and, like, he's just so set in talking to her, which is, like, not what NPCs do. And that kind of sets the whole train reaction of, he's determined to talk to her, so he does things that his NPC is not supposed to do, and eventually there's, like, a guy robbing the bank that he works at, and he stops the player, and takes the player's glasses off and puts it on, which is kind of funny because NPC, like, again, there's a whole other thing, like, in the ice cream scene, like, there's not, like, a move to kiss someone, and then of course he kisses the girl in the ice cream scene. Ryan Reynolds kisses the Millie in the video game,
and then later, inexplicably, Millie is somehow able to.
Yes, that's him. Never explained. Never explained.
Even though they specifically said there's no button for, like, kissing someone.
I know.
The other time I specifically remember the like, movie breaking its own rules was there's Millie jumps on Ryan Reynolds' lap while he's driving a motorcycle, but again, this game is supposed to be, like, it's being played with a mouse and keyboard on a screen. It's not like Ready Player One where you have, like, a full body haptic feedback suit. But Millie jumps on his lap while he's driving a motorcycle, and they're, like, making a getaway, and people are shooting at them, and she's like, "Is that a Glock in your pocket?" And he's like, "No, and obviously it's supposed to be a dick joke. But then he's like, it's 2 Glocks, and she like pulls the Glocks out and starts shooting people. But it's like, but how would she have felt that there's like a bulge in Ryan Reynolds' pants? Like,
they just wanted to make that joke.
Yeah, that's exactly. Like, they just wanted to make
one of those cheesy lines. So, yeah, that was okay. One of the parts of the movie that genuinely made me laugh. Like, it took me to this point in the movie to make me laugh, just kind of genuinely. Like, I was just kind of smiling and kind of enjoying it up until this point, but. When they're kissing after the ice cream, and the music is playing and it's kind of like this nice kissing scene, and then it like zooms out and it shows Millie like in her computer seat watching the game, like she's obviously like emotionally moved because this guy seems to be like know her like really well and is like super nice, and she's like so conflicted because like all of a sudden this NPC, like this other player, starts kissing her in the video game when there's no kissing button, and she's like.
What?
You can't be feeling with her. You're just like, there's so many things I'm feeling right now. I don't know what. And the music stops when it cuts out and you see her, and it's just kind of this great little like.
It's
ha-ha
a funny
scene.
cutting from like romantic scene to like
yes,
suddenly just her in the real world. It's just dead silent. Like, what the heck is happening?
And then right after that scene, Keys walks into her apartment in the real world and realizes that. Another cool thing about this movie is that guy in the video game becomes super popular like worldwide because everyone knows about this.
This is an alternate version of the world where video games are like incredibly mainstream popular, and not just because obviously they're mainstream popular like in real life, but like there's news stories devoted to this blue shirt dude in Free City, which obviously would not happen in real life.
Yes. That was very extreme. But another underlying premise about this game is that, like, okay, well, I won't get into that yet. But so he's very popular, like, internationally. Like, the world is aware of this. No one knows who this player is because you can't, they can't boot him from the game. They can't, because you're not supposed to have an NPC skin.
Yes.
But he is an NPC, and so no one really knows who this guy is. And then Keys realizes that there's no other when Guy is on the screen, anyone can see him in the video game. There's no player tag, like there's no like I don't know, behind the scenes with the code. He can tell that no one's actually playing him, but he's there. And so he realizes that this is his code and it's an intelligent AI. He gets super excited, nerded out. So he goes to Millie's apartment, and that's right after Millie was kissing him in the video game, or he was kissing her in the video game. And so you're kind of in this funny mood as the viewer watching. And Keys tells Millie that, hey, this isn't a player, this is an AI, and she's like, you can't say that because I just kissed him. It's like, what? That was a great scene. That was pretty nice. And then I guess two of the main underlying premises of themes or motifs, I don't know what you want to call it, lessons of this movie is that how do you wrestle with the fact if you're just in a video game? Like, where do you find meaning? And of course, like any movie in our society today will tell you, you find meaning in the relationships you have with people. So it's like, if you're just in a video game and you're not a real person, how do you wrestle with that? Is everything just pointless and meaningless and you just kind of give up? But then it's like, no, you realize that, even if you can't figure out the meaning, you can feel that there is meaning because of the people that you know and are related to, and da-da-da-da-da. So that's one of the main themes. And then the other theme is that, well, actually, I guess that kind of sums it all up pretty nice. I think that's like the main
well, actually,
theme
yeah, now that you think about it, they're pretty much that's it. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, what else? Yeah. It's supposed to be a comedic movie, so what else are you going to do?
It's supposed to be funny, but it's not. That's not that funny is the only problem.
The parts of this movie that were not really funny to me, like, there were just a few they were too bold. Actually, I think that's my one critique, is that kind of fits all the things of all my critiques, because when the comment about him losing the virginity in his mouth because the coffee tasted so good, like, that just felt like, okay, I felt like I was just like slapped in the face or something. And then there's another moment where he's running to grab a wrecking ball, running off of a building, and it cuts to Miley Cyrus's song,
Came in like a
Wrecking Ball, wreck, and then it's just literally in the movie for like 5 seconds, and then he tries to grab onto it and he can't. He just goes right through it because it's a video game, and it's like, haha, and he falls. That felt like a little much. There's another scene where he pulls out a Captain America's shield
And they
as
hard
punching
cut
him
to Chris Evans, who's also watching this live, apparently.
Yes.
And he's just like, what the... Yeah, like, Chris Evans has this hilariously short cameo where he's just reacting to watching a live stream of Ryan Reynolds' character use his shield in a video game.
Yes, that was funny. The cut to him. But, like they used, like, the Avengers theme.
And Star Wars.
This villain,
yes.
This villain's punch. He's got the Hulk punch. He punches down. He pulls up the shield, Captain America's shield, and then the Avengers theme plays. It's like haha. And then another thing, he pulls out a lightsaber, and then of course you have the Star Wars theme play. So this movie spent a lot of money in, like, I don't know what you call that product.
It is 20th Century Fox,
or,
so I'm assuming they they just talked to Disney. Or wait, no, Disney owns Fox now, so never mind. They didn't talk to anyone. They just did.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I forgot
that makes
they
sense
acquired
then.
them. Yeah, so okay, they just did it. They're just like, yeah, whatever. Use the lightsaber as a joke. It's fine. Use Marvel as a joke. There's also a few video game references. There's the Halo tank. You see that a couple times, and then you see, I can't remember what the gun's from. You see like a gun from this a different video game, and then you see they're not the same. They don't look like they do in the actual games they're from. So I get the feeling that they just use these without explicitly getting permission, but we all kind of knew what they were doing, which was there's the gravity gun that we see,
the portal gun.
There's the portal gun, which does not look anything like the portal gun from Portal, but the two portals it opens are blue and red, are blue and orange, so obviously it's the portal gun. And then the gravity gun, which Guy uses to like throw dude a little bit, which is clearly the gravity gun from Half-Life. I mean, it's fine. They're just in there to be crowd pleasing. They don't actually have any real impact. And whatever. I do like dude. I thought that was fun. Like that. They're like trying to figure out ways to slow Guy down, and they keep throwing different things at him. And I just assumed, and you could just say this maybe would have been too predictable or like too cheesy. I assumed that Taika Waititi and all of his other employees were going to like fire up and get on their accounts and like jump into the game, and then Ryan Reynolds and the NPCs were going to have a big like battle with all of the like players from the corporation, and that was going to be the final showdown. So on one hand, I'm glad they didn't do that, because that maybe would have been a little too predictable. But on the other hand, you almost have to wonder like, why didn't they do that? Because that seems like that would have been a good way to stop them.
Actually, this plays into the other main thing that this movie, that one of the other main messages, I don't know, morals behind it, is that, which I thought was pretty creative, and like, well, it made me think a little bit, like, why do video games have to be all about like, the violence and the guns and the shooting and abusing people? There's obvious reasons to that, because it's fun. But the Millie and Keys, the original game developers, the ones that had developed the code, that was being used illegally by Taika Waititi. Yeah. So they believed that a video game could be more than that, and there's like a joy of just like watching an AI develop. And if you create a super smart world, you can just live in it with your. It's kind of like a Sims, and you just kind of live in it and you watch things happen. And there's like this kind of like this weird like video games don't have to be super violent, and they can just be, and they can still be really cool. By these really cool AI worlds. And there's been a few video games like that, like No Man's Sky tried that, and that never really became a thing.
I guess it's fair. I kind of forgot, because I never really played The Sims, but I guess one of my complaints was like with their idea for a game, I was like, would anyone actually play this stupid game where you just like live a regular life but in this city? And now that you say that, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, for sure.
Yes.
Like
and it just like makes you think, like, what if we didn't live in like a fallen world? Like, what would video games look like? They would probably look like a lot more like the movie was suggesting.
I guess for me though, I guess I just wouldn't play. I would just be like, well, I'm just gonna go like, I don't know, like do something in real life.
Yeah,
because that's part of my thing with video games is like, well, if I think about like one of the things I do in video games, or why I play video games, is like because I want to do things that I can't do. And so as bad as that sounds, it's like, yeah, that's why we end up like shooting a whole bunch of people or whatever. It's like, yeah, because I can't do that in real life, at least not without consequences. So
but then and Taika Waititi in the movie obviously believes in that kind of ideology behind video games, and he's kind of like the greedy money. I don't know if he's a capitalist, but he's kind of the guy. He's all about the money and pleasing the crowds and using the typical video game violence methods. And the protagonists are all like, like, no, this is beautiful and needs to not be abused and just be its own thing. And there is it's kind of typical of movies to do this, but like you have those two characters, the greedy bureaucrat who's after money, and then the protagonist who's after something more than money. And that kind of builds throughout the movie and has a pretty typical but nice escalation in the real world by the end of the movie. That felt pretty good to me. Yeah. So the two biggest things, like you find meaning and relationship with each other, and then why do video games always have to be about violence? Can't you just enjoy playing a game? Which there's actually a lot of games out there now. Now that I think about it, there's a lot of like apps for your phone where like you can just like live a life normally and do normal things, and for whatever reason people totally dig that, which I guess in a way it's kind of it's an escape that's a lot simpler to a different kind of life. A
lot of us, I mean, that's all video games is escapism, so I guess in its simplest form that's maybe the sadness of games that just kind of imitate real life. People just don't like their real life, so they just want to live a boring video game life that's supposed to be more like what real life would ideally be like, I guess. But
I mean, the movie also comments on that, because at the end, Ryan Reynolds, he tells Millie in the video games, like, hey, like, I know I love you, him speaking as an AI, like, I love you, but your life is more than this. You're out there and I'm down here, and you have to live your life still. And that was kind of a typical, like, you might expect that to be thrown in the movie, that line. Mm-hmm. But the whole movie he's wrestling with, like, we're meaningless, so what do I do? But then he has this kind of really cool line at the end I think all the Christians would love, when he's like, but you have to, like, you're a very specifically written, I'm a very specifically written person, and you have to wonder who the author is that wrote me and why he intended to make me this way. It's like, so I just imagine all the Christians being like, it's God.
You've met God. That's a different line in this movie.
Yeah, that is a different line. And he's like, I've obviously been written in a very particular way, and so maybe you should figure out if I please you. The NPC is talking to Millie, the player. Like, if I please you so much, someone designed me this way, so you should probably go find out who that designer guy is. And of course, it turns out that her friend partner, her keys, and they had this nice moment of like realizing that in the movie. It doesn't. That's the last time you see the real world.
Yeah, the last time you see them is just it cuts to black when they're like about to kiss in the middle of the street.
Okay,
and so
it's really funny because they look at each other across the street, and they like realize she finally accepts that he loves her, and they run to each other in the middle of the street. And it was really weird because the whole time I really was picking up on these vibes that they're about to be hit by a truck or something, which thankfully did not happen. It was just
I think that's
weird.
Because at any other point in this movie, yes. Whenever a character crosses the street in the video game, they get immediately run over by something because it's a video game, so you can do that. But obviously, once we get into real life, we can just have them romantically run across the street to each other at night in the city lights and. Isn't it beautiful?
So I feel like this, all in all, like this movie, its weakest points were it tried to be, there were points where it was just too forward, and like they were trying to make too much of a Deadpool character out of him when he really wasn't fitting that vibe. There's some things that didn't really fit, but that's kind of a small complaint. Overall, I really think this movie did a pretty good job with its ingenuity with how to creatively represent this kind of reality of being in a video game. I feel like they did a pretty good job of doing that. I mean, you can't really do that super realistically, but I appreciated that dynamic. I feel like it was, in my opinion, I know you won't agree with me here, but in some ways I feel like it was just shy of like a super great movie. I don't know what it is, but like if walking away from it, I'm like, well, that was a pretty good movie. I generally enjoyed it. I feel like it was just shy of being like wow, that was a great movie. Like that really was cool.
I feel like it just missed, like, this concept.
It missed something.
This concept could have been good, but it missed certain things that just made it. Like,
yeah,
I
it's
think
definitely the best
definitely,
so far.
In terms of video game movies, I guess this is the best so far. It doesn't.
Maybe Tron is the best.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that, but Tron's
probably best.
it's not saying much when you look at most video games movies to say this is the best. Do you remember the Warcraft movie? I saw that. Like,
I never even bothered with that.
Yeah, no. The only reason I saw it is because one of my friends was like really into Warcraft, and he was like, "We should go see this," and I did, and I was like, "Okay." But and what's funny is I'm pretty sure that one, if I'm remembering correctly, was like really trying to set up sequels, like with the movie, and it's like, yeah, that never happens. But anyway, this
the thing with video game plot lines, they seem to be pretty simple because the whole idea is that you play along with it. So you don't have to have a super intelligent
That's what's funny about
plot.
That's what's hard about making a video game movie, is that a lot of the fun of video games is that like you get to interact with it, and so like you miss that with a movie, obviously, because in a movie the characters have to do everything, and also part of the problem is like if you're making a video game movie and you're using the main character of the video game as your main character, like, it depends on the game, but a lot of video game characters are blank slates because they're just meant for the player to just sort of assume that role.
Yep.
And
so I haven't seen the Witcher, but that seems to be doing fairly well.
I get. Oh, I forgot. No, that's okay. The more we talk about this, the more I remember that actually, stuff.
The more rational we begin to sound.
Yes. So, The Witcher is actually a pretty decent video game adaptation, but I don't know, man. It's one of those things where this movie could have been good. I think there was a lot of problems with pacing between the two stories of Ryan Reynolds' story and the real world story. I feel like the way they interwove those was not the most elegantly done. There was also some pacing problems in the real world story. There's like a moment where they say like, "Oh, we only have 48 hours. We only have 48 hours left to, do the thing before."
Yeah, that didn't make sense.
And there's multiple reasons why that won't make sense that I will get into maybe in a second. But then, like, literally, like, it seems like a lot of time has passed, and then they're like back in the office, and they're like, we're 48 hours from the launch of Free City 2, and it's like, wait. What do you mean? We were 48 hours away like 12 hours ago. Like, what's going on? Like,
little advice for you, Paul. I'm just kidding. You know this. But movies, I don't know if there's ever been a movie that has said like we have like so much time left, and then it's actually an accurate amount of time left.
It's just funny. It's just
that
funny.
Never happens.
I know. It's just like that was one of the most blatant examples I've seen of like, wait, like only like. It seems like these scenes, I guess, from what they say, are happening at the same time, but like clearly can't be. But that's fine, whatever. It's also funny that Free City 2. So they say that Free City 2, the problem that they're dealing with is that the game is going to be shut down, and so Ryan Reynolds is going to die, basically, because Free City 2 is launching, and it's just going to replace Free City 1. So I assumed when they said, that's not how sequels work in video games. So at first I assumed that like, oh, maybe this is supposed to be like a free to play game, and so like it's just going to be a big over there update, and now it's just going to be like, now it's Free City 2, it's completely overhauled, but like that way obviously like no one's really losing any money. They do say like, oh, the skins won't carry over and stuff like that, so that would piss people off because like obviously if you free to play games, the way they make money is like skins and selling you equipment and stuff. So if that stuff didn't carry over, people would be really angry because they would have lost all their money. But they haven't lost their buy-in. But then they specifically say like, oh, pre-order sales and stuff like that. And it's like, well, that means that it's a real game that like costs money to up front to play, which also presumably means that Free City 1 was the same way. So like you wouldn't just shut it down because everyone would hate you. Like, hey, I bought this game for $60 and now I can't even play it anymore. Come on, man. Like, that's not cool. So,
yeah, but how else are you gonna hate the villain of the movie?
I get, but it just doesn't make sense. Even the most cruel businessman is gonna like understand that he can't just like nuke this game into nothing where no one could even use it anymore. Like, that's not how this works. Like, especially a game that's not supposed to be that old. Like, it's 4 years old. Like, cutting online support for it just wouldn't work is the point. Like, the company would basically have to be defunct in order for them to like think that was a good idea. But whatever. It's fine. That's the premise they're going with. And then just like I said, the pacing between the real world and the video game didn't really. It just didn't seem right. Like, they didn't do the best job of interweaving those stories. It would have been fun to have more, Truman Show-like moments of, like, Ryan Reynolds kind of, like, waking up and, like, realizing, like, stuff is strange.
That's true. That was one of the more... There could have been more of those moments, which are really the funniest and most interesting part.
Yeah. There's sort of, again, more incongruencies where it's, like, he's in the coffee shop... And he's like, every morning he gets, the medium coffee with like 2 creams and 1 sugar or whatever it is. And then like, he's like, today I think I'd like to have a cappuccino. And all the other NPCs are kind of like looking at him like, what? And like the cop NPC like implies that he's going to shoot him. Like, and there's a tank outside that like turns its barrel towards Ryan Reynolds. And then like, he's like, you know what? Actually, yeah, I'll have the medium coffee, and like everyone's like, oh good, and it's like
there could have been more moments
that
like
kind of they drop that though too, because it's like it's almost like everyone's resisting the change, but then like later on Ryan Reynolds just like calls everyone together and he's like, what if we don't do this anymore? And all the other NPCs are like, yeah, well, that's a good idea. Like, that scene was honestly one of the worst in the movie to me, his little like NPC pep rally where he sort of like brings them all together and is like, we're gonna do this. And then of course the thing they're gonna do is just like hang out in the coffee shop, apparently. Like, that was their big plan. Like, that was the other problem.
They were doing things that they typically wouldn't do, whatever that is.
Yeah, but like it seemed
not
like
making just a boring coffee.
It seemed like, he's like, everyone huddle up, and then it's
But it was
like,
funny though. It was supposed to be like, haha. Like, let's meet it. What are they doing? Of course, they're in the coffee shop celebrating making cappuccinos and not regular coffees. Like, it was just funny.
I guess so. It's just one of those things where it's like, I was hoping that the other NPCs would have some bigger part to play in like the climactic showdown than like basically nothing. So, I mean, whatever. That's fine. I guess I'll end on a high note here, which is my favorite thing, I think, is that because Guy is so popular, they decide they're going to have like an updated version of him who's going to be in like Free City 2, except he's like even more like roided out. Like, he's like the jacked version of Ryan Reynolds, and he's like 8 feet tall, and he's got, instead of like, he's bare chested, but he's actually got like a blue shirt tattoo over his heart.
Yes.
Just a bunch of funny stuff like that. And also he's incomplete because they drop him into the game early to try and stop Ryan Reynolds from like getting to the secret level that reveals that really the game was built on top of stolen code. And so they drop him in early, and I love all the moments of like the stuff that's not finished with him is really funny, where he's like about to do something cool and he's just like, catchphrase.
Yes.
Just like there's like there's 3 things I love: kicking butt, to be determined, and I'll come up with something later. Like, just, yeah, like that was kind of funny.
Like when you're making a PowerPoint and you forget to take out like the enter text here.
Yes, like there will be something there eventually. But yeah, I guess that
was funny.
The video gamey stuff is maybe my favorite part, but yeah, the movie it doesn't quite stick the landing for me. And unfortunately, I feel that way about like most of the recent media properties I've seen recently. So maybe I'm just becoming more of a cynic. But like, it's like, come on, guys, just do better. Like, like the most recent Suicide Squad, which we're not reviewing, I guess. But like, come on, guys, like it was way better than the first one. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just not into that kind of movie. I guess I don't know. But
I'm about to watch Black Widow.
Nice.
Tonight.
Nice.
So we'll see how that goes.
Cool. Well, I guess that's our review of Free Guy, though. It's got fun ideas and fun concepts. It just would be nice if it maybe could like actually tell the story a little better. So I'm actually willing to forgive most of the incongruencies, like, because it's like, whatever, it's a funny video game world, but like it just would be nice if the overall story had been like better than what it was. So
yeah, I guess it could have been smoother. I definitely enjoyed it more than you. I thought it was pretty creative with how it wrestled with certain issues, or just like how to represent an in video game world. It could have been done better. It could have totally, but I thought it was definitely. I would watch it rather than Ready Player One. I would rather watch Tron Legacy than any of those. But if it comes to a video game movie, yeah, I would give it a higher rating from my personal opinion. But
I mean, I'd rather watch this than the Warhammer movie. Not Warhammer.
Oh, yes.
Warcraft? Yeah, Warcraft. Sorry. I can't even remember.
Game Hammer War.
Game
thing.
Warhammer.
War,
Warhammer 40K.
Fire.
That's the next thing we need you guys to try and make a movie out of. Try to do that. What kind of horrible darkness that would result in, I have no idea. Except it would never happen because Games Workshop would probably demand like 80% of the profits. And Hollywood would be like, no, that's not what we do here. But whatever. Anyway, Free Guy. I'll give it a thumbs halfway.
Thumbs up from me.